representing Franchise Secrets, Eric Von Horn.
If you're not a part of the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I cannot believe how valuable this group turned out to be. When someone asks a question, the feedback is honest, authentic, very helpful, and it's from multiple perspectives. If you're not sure that you're getting the most accurate information about franchising, then check out the largest, most helpful Facebook group in all of franchising. Whether you're a Z, a Zor, a buyer, or investor, join our free Facebook group at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. All right, Franchise Secrets. This is a very different episode. We got Justin Donald on, and he's a good friend of mine. We're business partners in the Tribe of Investor Mastermind. And I thought we should just start doing some shows with him because he's in franchising. Like I said, we're business partners. He's got an eye on the economy, making good moves. He doesn't have the crystal ball, but we got into all kinds of things on this podcast. I guarantee you will laugh. We got into cash versus savings and how you can actually have the best of both worlds. How we stole from Ryan Levesque at QuizFunnels, and we got into like why that's important, but that we did. We actually stole from Ryan Levesque, which was awesome. We got into how we embarrass our kids. Like we are the funny, fun dads, and we both have, we didn't even know these stories about each other, but we told some stories of how we like to intentionally embarrass our kids. What's better, single, double, or a home run? Like what strategy is better? Home runs are obviously always good, but do you always get a home run? And should that be your strategy or should it be something different? And then Justin talked about being a return investor or a trend investor. So I think you will find that very interesting as well. So I hope you enjoy the show with Eric and Justin. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I don't know if you are ready.
I was born ready.
If people could have listened to the last 8 minutes,
they would have no clue that I was ready, but I'm born ready.
Well, today, interest rates just are going up, continuing to go up. CPI just released new information, like what, 9.1?
9.1%. It's just crazy.
I remember when we first started the Mastermind Tribe of Investors, we had a session, and I think that was it in January we had our first session? I can't remember.
Yeah. It was close to then.
It was close to then. And then I was just looking at a news report, and so the government or Biden in December said, the inflation was going to be done in December. And then we had a mastermind session where we were starting to talk about inflation because that back then it was all transitory. Everything was transitory. That's what you heard. And now, we're in July and 9.1. What do you think?
9.1%. This is a crazy number. And by the way, that doesn't even account for, a couple of major indicators that I think more, the majority of, educated, sophisticated people look at. But 9.1% is high.
Did you think we'd be at 9.1? If you had to predict back in January that we'd be at 9.1 now, would you have predicted that, or what are the chances that it would be at 9.1?
Well, I knew at some point that inflation was going to kick in because we're printing money. So a lot of people, I feel like today, don't even equate or recognize that inflation is the byproduct of money creation, right? You're inflating the value of the dollar or whatever currency it is. So at some point, I knew it was going to go up. And every time they've ever said a number, I've known that it's higher than the number that they're using. So it's always worse than whatever is shared with the public. I think it's important to recognize that.
How do people, how do you trust the news? And this might be an interesting conversation going on because I had some amazing conversations when I was in Poland with journalists. But where do you get trusted information?
It's hard to trust the news. I mean, I don't trust the news. The whole idea of independent journalism is kind of, it's not even a thing today. It's really hard to have that. So I feel like news is really, whoever has the ability to influence the news in a direction that is advantageous for whatever their position is, or whatever they're investing in, or, you know, whatever they own, I think that happens. And I think it happens more than people realize.
I was at the Westin Hotel in Poland, in Warsaw, you know, back when that war first started. And there's journalists everywhere. Like the journalists that you recognize on TV from all the major outlets were there. And I had, you know, me being curious, I started asking questions. And I asked questions to the right-leaning Fox and the left-leaning CNN and MSNBC, and people that and they all know each other too. So everything's a small world. So they all know each other. And I was talking to, actually, this was a story on the border when I was in Premzel, which is with the main border where everyone was crossing. This is when there was bombing going on. They were shelling one of the nuke areas. And I'm like, it was all over the news. My wife's texting me, be careful. And you would have thought the world was about to end any second. And so just reported that everybody would recognize. I went up and asked him, I said, dude, what's going on here? Are we safe? And cause all my friends and family in America are like, Eric, you gotta protect yourself. And he's like, of course you are. This is just the news. We're just wanting to get eyeballs. This isn't a big deal. When seconds ago he was screaming how big of a deal it was. But I just had multiple conversations like that with people that were in the news, both again, left and right leaning. And they're like, it's a business. One guy said in the pandemic, and he worked for a left leaning station. And he said, I could not report a good news story. On COVID, I couldn't do that. The higher ups would not let me. And you know, the same has to be true on both sides. So the news is a business. They have an audience. They monetize that audience. They have advertisers. It's a business. But like, you know, the whole point of all of this is like, where do we get trusted? A first step is recognizing the thing that you think might be trusted might not be trusted, whether it's some of the things that we talk about in investing, or just the news where you're understanding what's going on in the economy. You can't trust everything that you may think you can trust today.
Yeah. And I think the same is true of the message that you get from the government, that there's always underlying issues, and you're not going to get the real story. You're never or rarely going to get the real story. You're going to get what the government needs you to get. You know, if they don't want mass pandemonium, then they're not going to tell you that inflation is, you know, as high as it is, because that freaks people out. They're going to say that, you know, it's transitory, or now they have to actually recognize that it's growing and it's not just a temporary thing. Like for many years, they tried to get people to believe. Now, so I will say, though, as rough as it feels and seems here, it's a lot worse in other places. So I think like the saving grace of what's happening in the US, number one, is that we're still the world reserve currency. And number two, that it's not as bad here as it is in Europe, as it is in other parts of the globe.
I read a headline this morning that said, adjusted for inflation, workers' hourly wages fell 1% during the month and are down 3.6 from a year ago. So, I mean, that's a pretty good bad stat. That's a bad stat, but it's pretty much in your face of, and we talk about wages going up and the middle class and the lower class needing more wages, but they're down over 3.5% from a year ago.
Yeah. You've got, interesting shifts with employment. You've got wages that are not keeping up, certainly with inflation. You've got, your lower end of income earners really getting squeezed. I think you've got a lot of middle income earners that are starting to feel that. And it's likely just going to get hopefully just a little worse, possibly a lot worse.
So there's certain people that are absolutely feeling inflation. When have you felt it? Like, have you like go to the store. For the longest time, I didn't know what avocados were how much I was paying for an avocado. I had no clue. I might as well be going into a foreign country that I didn't know really what the dollar amount meant or the currency, and I would just swipe my credit card. Never paid attention. And just recently, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm paying X amount for avocados. And I asked my wife, is this normal? How much are these things? And so if I'm just now, you probably don't even, I guess the question is, are you at the point where you are feeling it in like your everyday life there? Because I'm sure you're at the similar, like you didn't pay attention to prices of certain things and now you might be.
Yeah, I've never really paid attention to prices. Even when I was younger, I didn't shop gas station gas. You'd have, two on the corner. And I remember having a conversation with my wife, and my wife's like, yeah, I totally shopped it. I always went to the one that was cheaper. And we're talking like 1 cent, 2 cent difference. And I was like, man, that thought was the furthest thing from me. I needed gas. I wanted to get on my way. And I just figure whatever it's going to cost, I'm just going to find a way to make it. And the same is true of just life in general. I've always kind of viewed it as, I know a lot of people make a budget. I think making a budget's really good. A lot of people, they have these set numbers and they're going to stay, in this number. I think that's awesome. I would never give anyone a hard time that does that, because it takes a lot of planning and preparation. But, and I've done that before. But I've also been the person that feels like if I want to get something, I'm going to figure out the cost of it, and then I'm just going to find a way to earn what I need to earn to be able to afford it. And it's just a little bit different of a mindset. And my wife and I talk about this all the time, where she's like, yeah, I always looked at it from affordability standpoint. Can I afford this? Yes or no? Very binary. And I always looked at it as like, well, I can't right now, so let me make these moves so that I can. And then as soon as I could, I would get it.
So has she noticed prices in the grocery store yet?
She probably has. She's probably less in tune today than she was at one point in time. I know she price shopped, and I know one of the things that we're trying to teach our daughter is like understanding the prices and, doing some of this price shopping. But, as a general rule, I think for her, the more removed that she is from the shopping itself, the more removed she is with the pricing and with the convenience today of many markets being able to use, some sort of a delivery, an Instacart or some version of that. We do a lot of just groceries delivered to home. And so you're just not seeing the prices. You're seeing a final bill. There's no price shopping. But my wife still likes to shop periodically and get, the exact produce she wants. And so, yeah, I think she probably still looks at the price a little bit.
I was talking to some people, I was listening to a podcast that I think it's a fun podcast, and they were having a similar type discussion, but they're saying, have you changed from Whole Foods to Trader Joe's, or have you gone from Whole Foods to Harris Teeter, or whatever the lower level is from Whole Foods? Have you noticed any of that, or had any friends talk about that?
Yeah, I've certainly heard friends that are making the shift to a more affordable store. The other day, it was really funny. My wife did go shopping, and I can't remember if we were out of town or if we had just gotten back in town, and we were just closer to another store. And she's like, I am blown away by how much cheaper just the regular, for us, it's H-E-B, how much cheaper H-E-B is, which is the largest grocery store chain in Texas, than a Whole Foods. She's like, it's light years apart.
And H-E-B is not like low end. They got some good stuff. I like H-E-B. All right. So you're starting to be aware of that. We as a family are starting to be aware of that, but we're also using it as teaching moments for the kids as well. And, they have the business, Crazy Good Eggs. supplies going up in the summer in Crazy Good Eggs. Chickens are producing more eggs. Kids are making more money. And they're starting to understand what they can buy with that or save and give away. So I think all of this is good, fun stuff to be able to teach them about like inflation and the value of the dollar, how far it can go, choices to make. Do you want this or do you want to buy this? It's your money. And so we're doing some similar stuff within our family.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think the more that we can educate, the better. And I just think that these are valuable skills, whether you choose to price shop or not. I think that having that ability is really important. And whether you choose to do a budget or not, I think being able to do one is really important. And even if you don't need it for a period of time, your children need it. And just because one spouse doesn't need it, doesn't mean that the other one, doesn't as well.
So budget is basically, your financial situation. And you and I look at companies, we invest in different companies, we invest in businesses separately and together. And one of the things that I've noticed is some of these entrepreneurs don't have their like cash flow budgets. They don't have, they're not really good with the financials. And I've had multiple conversations with other groups, some equity groups that I'm working with, and they're just like, this is normal. Like there's franchisors that don't have their stuff together from a financial and a budgeting situation, really accurate financials. And they do it at the end of the year for the FDD. But just some of these, you've bought businesses before that are not necessarily franchises. What are you seeing out there? How important is it for franchisees, small business owners, investors to understand financial statements? And where this is coming from, Justin, this is why Robert Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, this is a financial education book when I interviewed him on the podcast.
Yeah. And I think even more over than that, cash flow quadrant that's the one that changed the game for me. And that's the one that really kind of taught more of the income statements. And actually, who does a really good job is Keith Cunningham. He really makes the income statements fun and easy and, has simple acronyms. And we've been using the game cash flow for kids to teach Savannah how to, really understand assets versus liabilities. But to answer your original question, I think every entrepreneur should have some financial literacy. I think every entrepreneur should have the ability to read and interpret your three most common financial statements, which would be your balance sheet, your profit and loss, and your statement of cash flow. Like, to me, those are the most important ones. And really, like most entrepreneurs, their skill set is not going to be heavy lifting with financials. That's why there's a need for a CFO or a VP of finance, or whoever comes in to fill that role until the company's big enough to have a CFO, even if it's a fractional CFO. So someone needs to major in it, but all entrepreneurs should have some, at least moderate, more than basic, at a minimum basic, but ideally some moderate type of understanding of all these financial statements.
So you and I talk about it, well, a lot in the mastermind and just in private conversations about not having a ton of cash on hand. And there's some misconceptions when somebody hears, when I'm talking to somebody and they ask about investing because, they see the content that you and I put out there, and they're friends that don't really know what I do, but they know I know stuff about this investing thing and financials. And so they asked me, like, well, how much cash do you keep on hand? Why don't you keep a lot of cash on hand, a lot of dry powder? And so I start to explain to them, there's avenues out there to put your cash into different types of investments that are more liquid than one would think. So give us some perspective on when you say you like to invest a lot of your money, you don't like to have a lot of cash on hand, but at the same time, we still have some liquidity to be able to take advantage of different opportunities as they may come up.
Yeah, I think there's a best of both worlds scenario. So a lot of people sit on cash because they want to have it at their fingertips when a good deal comes up. And then in that interim, they're not making money. They're actually losing money, right? Every single day that there's dollars sitting in the bank or sitting somewhere not getting a return, that those dollars are losing money at 9.1%, CPI or inflation. And so if you have your money locked up though in an investment, then it's earning money, but it may not be liquid. You may not have the utility today under, an emergency need. So there's this, these two different worlds where it's like, I sit on cash or I'm fully invested, but there are ways that you can make investments into liquid vehicles that pay pretty well. On the public side, this is, pretty evident that you can do this. You can move money here and there in the stock market or money markets, but you are, kind of playing at the whim of where the market is. And you could be pulling money out for liquidity's sake at a time where it hurts you because it drops so much. So I don't like that on the public side. There are other ways to do it in the bond market. And that makes, a little bit more sense. You could use like a 28-day T-bill where you're earning a little bit, but you get access to it, approximately once a month. Or you can go into, like 7 different tranches. So each week you do a different one. So every 7 days you have money coming due. So you're earning a small percentage, your money's safe. The government's not going to default, over 28 days. Like you're going to have warning signs prior to that, that you would need to pull your money. So that's like another avenue. But then on the private side, there's opportunities to earn, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12% with it still staying very liquid, with different groups that give you redemption rights. And some of the groups that I invest with, that we invest in, have given us the opportunity to get liquidity within 24 to 48 hours, with very minimal to no restrictions whatsoever. So yeah, those exist. And so that way, instead of sitting with cash in the bank account, making no money, losing money, making negative returns, you're actually making, let's call it 10% while you sit and wait, find the deal that you like, redeem those dollars, and then go make that investment.
Let's shift gears. The other day I went to, I was playing pickleball in the morning, and told some of the guys I was going to the rodeo that evening, and one of them says, "Oh, you gonna wear a cut-off flannel shirt?" And I'm like, I'm just like, that is such a fantastic idea. I don't own a cut-off flannel cowboy shirt, but I'm gonna go buy one. And I went immediately to Baumgars. Do you know what Baumgars is?
No.
Dude, it's the ranch store of the Midwest. Like Baumgars is where you go buy chicken feed and chickens and rope and knives and stuff like that. So I'm like, if there's a place that
Shorts while you were at it?
Shorts. I looked for them. I couldn't find them.
You got to make your own.
Well, when you post one on social, maybe we can do a podcast of the Justin Donald jorts. My nephew has a great pair, but I've not tried them yet. But I did go on the hunt at Baumgars for a good flannel cutoff shirt, because I just wasn't sure I didn't want to destroy a shirt by cutting it off. Probably that was a better way to go. But the reason I did this, when I heard him say that, I'm like, this is such a great idea to get into the rodeo mood. And my parents were coming with us, and I'm like, and the best thing is going to be embarrassing my daughters. They are going to just be like, I can't believe Dad's going to do this. I knew they would react that way, and I knew my wife would do the same. So they were at a different farm store buying some medicine for one of the horses, so I get in my Jeep with the top off, and I have my new shirt on, and they're just like mortified when they saw me. They're like, "Dad, what are you doing?" And then they said, "You're not going to wear that to the rodeo tonight." And I'm like, absolutely I am. And then I had them buy one for my dad to do the same thing. So Dad and I show up at the rodeo with these cut off sleeves, and we were getting text messages from people. Like, we were down in the front, people were in the stands that we knew, texting me, texting my wife, texting my dad pictures of us, and it embarrassed them so bad. So I had to take it to the next level and put it on social media. But I love doing stuff like that. Like I laugh sometimes. I'm like, if people that listen to my podcast and think I'm this big business guy actually knew the conversations that I had and how I goof around with my kids and the type of dad that I am, I'm like, they'd probably just wouldn't be able to believe it. So what do you like? How would you describe yourself? Are you the serious dad, the funny dad, what kind of dad are you?
I feel like I'm cracking jokes all the time. I think I'm
Dude, you're trying to crack jokes all the time. That's for sure.
Well, I make my best attempt. The thing that I got going for me though is I laugh at my own jokes. So whether other people find them funny or not, I crack up, and generally just me cracking up makes other people laugh. So it ends up working out pretty well. But yeah, I would say I'm probably more the high energy, funny, maybe fun type of dad, but I am no stranger to really like embarrassing my family, with an impersonation, or I love to scare my family. So we have like even in a store or whatever. I remember we were with my niece, actually both my nieces, but one specifically, and my daughter were hanging out, and I went and put on one of those big old masks. It was, I don't know, some sort of Halloween mask. I don't even know if it was Halloween time.
The werewolf mask.
Yeah, this store had them, and I saw them coming up, and I was on the other side, and I jumped out and I screamed, and they went. I mean, they literally lost it. And my daughter just starts cracking up. She's like, "That's the funniest thing. You got me, Dad." And then my niece, who is not used to this, just broke down crying. And so I definitely scarred her, at least temporarily. And I have sworn to not scare her, because it is something that she really despises.
That is too funny. It reminded me that in December, we were once December hits, it's snowing here, and you watch The Grinch, because The Grinch is a great show to watch. So I knew that we were going to watch it, on the weekend. So I go into Amazon and order the full on Grinch costume. So they getting ready to turn on, the popcorn's out. I just go to the room, do the full change. They didn't know it was coming. And I go out and I just act like everything's normal and start watching The Grinch. Dad, I can't believe you did that. Can I wear it?
That's awesome. I hope you posted that to social media. That's great.
Caleb wouldn't let me. Caleb's like, "Eric, people just think you're in a 3-piece suit all the time. They would never think that you'd actually be in The Grinch." Actually, I was on a TV show the other day with someone. My first time I was like, well, I've been on the news before, but like a show. And I wore my hat because I came in from playing pickleball, and it was recorded like this. But she says, "Eric, you're wearing your hat, huh?" She's like, "It's your brand." And I showed up to the pickleball court, and one of the guys said, "Eric, you're wearing black and gray again. What's your deal?" And sometimes I just do things like I want to make my life easy. So I have a lot of the same color shirts. I wear a hat so I don't have to do my hair sometimes. I like to make life easy in all kinds of ways. Are you like the simplify life, try to do that, or do you make things more complicated?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure I make things more complicated. I don't know if it's always like by choice. I just feel like I need the variety where I would really just grow impatient with my, colors or attire if I only had the same thing. So I like mixing it up. Now, from a simplicity standpoint, I do like having shorter hair. I remember I was younger, I had longer hair. And
how long was your hair?
So in high school, I used to play soccer, and I used to put that thing back in a tail. So I mean, it was beyond my chin. In a tail. Believe it or
they
not.
Didn't have man buns back then, did they?
No. I don't know if it was that popular. There may have been one other kid on the team that had longer hair, but yeah, I mean, I've had it short for a while, and it just makes it a lot easier to do. But I do have kind of like my go-to attire that I like to wear. And, from a workout standpoint, I love just hanging out in my workout clothes because they're comfortable. Lululemon, I'm going to give them a shout out.
They're the sponsor of the podcast. I mean, I love Lululemon.
And it's funny because I've been trying to get, I had a connection with the founder. Chip Wilson. And I got everything was in line to get him on my podcast. And then I got ghosted last second as we're trying to get stuff lined out. And then his PR person came in and was like, oh, we're not going to be able to accommodate. So that was a real bummer, but I still like their clothes. I still shop there. I still think they're the best workout clothes.
Dude, I like Lululemon. I like some other ones too, newer ones coming out. So there's all kinds of cool stuff like that. Pickleball. I destroyed you on the pickleball court last time we played, I think.
That is completely inaccurate. Yeah, you have a funny way of remembering things. And the funniest part about it is I was even a little gimpy because I just had wrist surgery and it was on my striking hand. So I couldn't even really break my wrist. I had to keep it straight. So yeah, that was fun. I think I don't know if you were expecting me to go a little more all out than probably what I should have. My doctor definitely advised me not to.
But it's funny how you remember. It's a little different than I remember it because you just had your little baby wrist surgery and were milking all the meds for whatever they were worth. So I don't know who had a clear memory of that day, but it was fun. After that, well, let me back up. It was
I would like for you to share, with whoever wants to check this out. Who ended up winning all the games? Who never
all the games?
Yeah.
I didn't have my good paddle with me. I do know that.
Just let me know who didn't lose a game ever. The whole
day. You definitely lost.
I did not.
At all?
Not a single game.
So just so the listeners know, Justin's very competitive. I used to be. I've kind of gotten better about, that. But what I do know, if someone was wearing a pickleball shirt, sponsored by, all this pickleball cool stuff, he was picking them as partners. So he had a lot of partners carrying some weak moves on his end. So I'm just saying. But what happened later that day or the next day is there was an auction at this event that we were at. And before that, I was at an event where I was speaking and my time got auctioned off and people were paying a lot of money for my time. And then they were booking to redeem it. And I'm like, I've got to give them my best. And I'm like, they are getting a deal, even though they paid a lot of money for it. I charge more money for my time than they actually paid for. So I knew I was worth more. I knew they paid a lot, but I wanted to deliver for them in a big way. So you and I were at this event and there was this thing getting auctioned off. You want to tell that story? Why we did that? Or is it not time to tell that story? Do we need to wait?
We most certainly can tell it. I mean, we could have some fun and just kind of delay it for a future episode, but or future, hangout. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty fun. Ryan Levesque has done some incredible things in the world of quiz funnels and has built a bunch of quiz funnels for a lot of successful companies. I mean, there are thousands of entrepreneurs that use his quiz funnels, which is really neat. And so we had the opportunity to get into this live auction for the services of, him personally, building our quiz funnel, which was a really cool and exciting experience. And so we're bidding. People that are in the industry know how much this is worth, and
which is a ton of money. It was worth a ton of money.
Yeah. He charges tens and tens of thousands of dollars to work with a lot of these companies. And the goal is, how do we get something that is super valuable, but for way less than the going rate? But this thing got bid up a lot and we ended up winning, which was really cool. I'm excited to be able to implement this and figure out, for us, we're going to do an investor quiz. We're already starting in that process of figuring out, what the different buckets are, so that we can help people figure out the type of investor they are. Where are their blind spots? Where do they need to make improvements? And I just feel like what a great opportunity to have a free resource for people so that they can learn, even if they never joined anything that we ever did, they could learn where do they need to seek more expertise in, like what areas are they falling a little short. So I'm excited to build that, and really just to work with Ryan, because he's an incredible person. I feel blessed to call him a friend, but then on the professional side, it's just fun to work with him. He's a true genius.
Dude, we stole that from him. We stole it from a lot of other people in that room. We were in, you and I were texting back and forth. Nobody else knew about it. And we played that very well. And we paid a good amount of money for it too. So we got some good money to some great charity.
Yeah, it was a win-win all the way around. All the money went to charitable purposes. We're going to build a quiz for the business, which is awesome. And then Ryan, gets to be able to be the person, the face behind what we're building, that I think is just going to have some major traction and opportunity.
What should people learn from that? Because we were, we had an opportunity to buy somebody's time and give the charity at the same time. That's extremely valuable. Like, what's a lesson in that for people?
Well, I think that in general, it's really good to be charitable. I think it feels good, but beyond the feeling that you get, the impact that it can have is tremendous. When I speak often, there will be kind of like an auction for, a call with me. It's, a 1 hour call. And I love doing that. I love seeing what they'll bid it up to. And I love knowing that the money is going to a good cause and is going to help people that really need it. And I just think that we are in this time and place where a lot of people are struggling. And sometimes when you're struggling, it's hard to think about other people, even though most people are struggling way worse than anyone that's born in a first world country. Way worse.
Yeah. I mean, we both seen other countries and what really is happening in this other world. Like, we live in a complete bubble. Like, in America, we are in a bubble, and we're not always the happiest, I mean, good. All right, let's shift gears again. A lot of time when I was younger, I was going for home runs, and we were talking about this in the mastermind a bit, singles, doubles, home runs, and going for home runs. And I think I used to try to do home runs, and then I saw the value of a good single, a good double, and just winning on some of these businesses and investments and whatnot. So, what's your mindset around that, investing or businesses? Home runs, singles, doubles?
Well, I think most people, Eric, go for the home run. And the problem with the home run is that there are a lot of strikeouts that come along the way. And sometimes you may not ever hit a home run. Maybe you're not an expert in that thing. If you're an expert in baseball, at some point in time, you're probably going to hit a home run. If you're not an expert in investing, you may never hit a home run, even though you may be going for home runs. Your strikeout rate is incredibly high if you're swinging that hard. But I have just found that over time, the worst thing that can happen to you is that you lose money. The worst thing. So there's good and bad that comes from that. I mean, losing money was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it made me a smarter investor. It really stunk in that moment, but it made me a smarter investor. Consistently losing money. I mean, once you lose money, there is a lost opportunity cost forever. You never make that money back. And so I think it's important to go for the investment that's safer, that maybe is a single or a double in terms of the return, but the downside risk is less. Because if you are playing the long game, just getting singles and doubles, you could never hit a home run if you just did singles and doubles. Over time, that's going to compound, and it's going to compound into something really big. If you lose money, that is really going to be a great thief to the wealth that you can create.
Warren Buffett talks about, not losing money, but I don't hear it talked about often, or maybe I just haven't been paying that much attention to it. Is that talked about often or not often enough? Just like, don't lose your money.
We've been in such a bull market. It's been harder to lose money. I think people have gotten away from protecting these investments because so many industries, everything's gone right. We have a lot of investors, operators that really could do no wrong. And if you did, man, you must have just been really bad or really unlucky, because the last like 14-ish years, maybe 15 years, it's been hard to lose money. It really has. But the problem with that now is people expect that. People think that they're better than they are. And so, yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough. I think people just expect to make money. Well, yeah, I put my money in a deal, I'm going to have a huge return. I don't think that that's how it works. And it certainly over the long haul isn't how it works. And we'll see as we enter into more challenging times. I suspect we're going to really just continue into more turbulent economic times.
So we're halfway through the year. Pull out your crystal ball. That's so accurate. What are we going to see at the end of the year?
Well, I think it's important for me to say that number one, no one knows what's going to happen. Right?
Dude, I love that. I love that. And Justin, and I set you up for that because I know that's how you think, but I love listening to these people and they just start telling you exactly what they think. But when I hear somebody like you and say that, it's like, okay, I'm listening more versus tuning them out. So sorry to interrupt, but that's good.
Yeah, I think that's important to recognize. Let's say that we're heading for a recession today, but the government prints another $1 trillion. That's going to shift some things. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what's going to happen. They could halt halt rate increases, interest rate increases. They could, decrease it. We don't know. I suspect that they're going to keep raising it. And I suspect that inflation is going to keep going up. I suspect that there are going to be some real estate markets that are going to get hit hard. I think there's some markets that I know there are some markets already feeling it. And I know that there are markets that are building up in foreclosures. But, over the whole, nation, I don't know that we're going to feel it the way that the doomsayers say that we are, but I don't think we're going to get out of this clean like some of the optimists think that we are. So no one really knows. I think the reason I found a lot of success, I believe, is number one, my goal isn't tied to the returns. I'm not a return investor per se. I am more of a trend investor. So even if we're entering into economically challenging times, I want to look at like what are the future technologies, what are the future advancements, what status quo is changing, what's a new status quo, where are the trends leading, like those. If you pay attention to those details, then you're investing in a way often where the economic results aren't really going to be tied as directly to your investment results. So I just think it's important to recognize no matter what season we're in, they're great opportunities. And if you're unsure, it's probably good to get educated and not rush into anything.
One of the ways to get educated is reading Justin's book, The Lifestyle Investor. Get into Justin's world, everyone. Listen to his podcast. Check out his book, and it's so good to have you on here, man. You're such a good friend of mine. I think we should do more of this. It's fun. It's fun to. We should probably do it after I beat you at a pickleball game. My game has leveled up so much since I played you. I don't know about your game. It's probably still weak.
Well, I haven't played much. Actually, I haven't played at all since we played, but I also hadn't played much prior to us playing. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm always down for a good game. I love the competitive spirit of being on a court and being in some sort of sport where you can really push yourself. I think there's so much incredible opportunity ahead of us. And if you're spending time with the right people, and if you're thinking about things the right way, you can take a hold and be a part of some of that, silver lining that will always exist during rough times.
Well, I'll give you one last word after I share my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway is what Justin just said. Surround yourselves around the right people that are better than you. And he is absolutely living proof of that on the pickleball court. He found people that were way better than him to be his partner.
Well, I would love to just close it out by saying that I actually teamed up and was partners with, I think, everyone on the court. So, yeah,
well,
it's interesting. There was one
I heard the qualifier. I think I heard the qualifier there.
Good stuff, man. This is awesome. Yeah, we'll have to do a lot more of these shows. It's fun just to, kind of banter back and forth.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com. You haven't had Robert Kiyosaki on yet, Justin?
No.
Dude, Robert, he's been on the Franchise Secrets Podcast. He hasn't been on Lifestyle?
No. Can you hook me up, please?
I'm sure I could. I don't know.
Right.
Let me think about it.
I'm going to go prep for this.
See ya.
I got 4 minutes.
Bye.
Bye.